Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the Tattooed Ministers YouTube channel. New thing, new day, new way of living life. I have a cold, or perhaps allergies, not sure. Either way, I sound a little weird, but it's fine. So I'm coming at you from YouTube. This is my second video from my channel, and I'm doing that for a couple of reasons. If you've been around in my digital world, then you know that for 24 hours, I was shut out of Facebook from all of its platforms, from all of the messenger apps, like any app that had anything to do with Facebook. Hannah Hill, the Tattooed Minister, couldn't do shit. And that's because the sermon I preached on Easter Sunday was taken down. So here's the thing. I talked about this in my other video, but I think okay, here it goes. My computer keeps pausing or whatever. So I hope that's not real in life. Anyway, so I talked about this a little bit, but I preached a sermon called #MenAreTrash. Yes, I'm re-preaching it right now. And I preached it on Easter Sunday, and within 24 hours, it was reported for hate speech, and it was taken down. Now, I want to be clear that I was not surprised that it was reported. White male fragility is real. It is really hard to hear those things. No doubt. I have been told that I have amazing opinions and shit delivery, and that is very true. I acknowledge that 100%. So, so it was taken down, and I realized that the Facebook bros of the world were not going to defend feminism. Like, that's not their job, I guess. They're definitely not down with understanding or comprehending what that looks like. And so here I am re-preaching it from YouTube because I'm hoping that there's enough video and sanity on YouTube that this will not be censored. So here's hoping. That's my story. So Easter Sunday rolled around a couple days ago, and I preached the sermon, like I said, #MenAreTrash and other lessons from Easter. And so I think it's important to understand a couple reasons why I preached that. Not long ago, I made that post on Facebook that men are trash. And someone came at me with the question of, what would Jesus do? Would Jesus say that? And the reality is, like, Jesus said a lot of shit that didn't make any sense and did a lot of things that said a lot of things that make a lot of sense. And so if you're just looking at what he said, no, of course not. He would never say that. If you're just looking at what he did, then no, of course, like, he wouldn't say that. But if we put all of those things together, then we have an opportunity to see context and to see what Jesus's message really was about. So to be clear, when Jesus was around, he was a fucking radical. The government powers, government structures, church leaders, church pastors, none of those people liked him. And it was because he was trying to take their power away. That's very important to remember. Jesus's whole purpose was to upend the power structures, to destroy the common threads of culture that defined religion and a relationship with God, and to fuck it up and to change it for humanity. That was his whole purpose. You could also say he died for sins. And yeah, he did. Like, that's the whole point of Easter. But the reason why he did that was to defeat death. This concept that death was the end. And that is because death is the ultimate power, right? We have that saying, like, there's only two things that will last forever, and that's death and taxes. And, like, that's that idea, right? Like, death is the ultimate power. And so in defying death, he defeated that power structure as well, the ultimate power structure. But that wasn't the only power structure. He came to defeat the patriarchy. He came to defeat cultural standards of purity and perfection. We're going to get into all that. It's just important to remember, as I'm saying all these things, that Jesus's whole purpose on being on the planet was to defeat death and the ultimate power structure along with all the other motherfuckers. So let's first start talking about why men are trash. In Jesus's day, men were trash because they controlled everything and didn't allow people to see the world in a way that was beneficial. Men controlled women, they controlled government, they controlled church. It's a lot like today, except not quite as bad, like maybe a little bit better. And so in being a man in that day and time, you were born into a system. That meant being born meant you were part of this class that ruled and defined life for everyone around you. And that's true today. If you are born as a man, it doesn't matter if you're white or black, guys. Even if you are black and you are a part of oppressed people, you are still a man and you benefit from being a man. Just like as a woman, even though I'm white and I benefit from being white, I am still oppressed. So if you're a man, you are born into this system. And that sucks. I think it's so amazing, right? That Jesus, as a Jewish man who was oppressed, is also part of a class that oppresses. He was part of that trash system too, y'all. And he, as a single individual man, couldn't change it. He, as a man, even in community, couldn't change it. And I think that is something to behold, right? That is the message also that Jesus is trying to convey, that you can be perfection on earth and still fail. That you can be perfection and be God's only son and create a community around this perspective of being God's children and still fail. And he did. So make no mistake, when I say men are trash, both in today and in Jesus's day, Jesus is included. I know, fucking sacrilege. I'm calling Jesus trash. I think Jesus is having a little giggle about it right now, though. Not the point. The point is that men were trash. And to convey this, every story of Jesus's life, from the beginning of the end, that is to say, from Palm Sunday forward, Jesus was failed by men. So no, Jesus never said men are trash, but instead he put himself in circumstances where every inch of the way he was failed by men. So let's go through this, shall we? Oh, we shall. Betrayed by a man, that would be Judas. When he was praying in the garden and in need of emotional intimacy and support, who fell asleep instead of supporting him? That would be men. When Jesus was taken to Pilate, Pontius Pilate, for condemnation, who took him there? A bunch of religious men. And who washed his hands of him? Because remember, apathy isn't action. That would be Pilate. He was a fucking man. On his way with the cross on his shoulders, who was there to mourn him? Not men, but women. Men were absent. Perhaps there was one or two there to write the story down. But even the men writing the story did not write themselves into the process of mourning Jesus. Like even they, in writing his story, failed him. The only people who had the balls to mourn Jesus in front of the Romans, the men who had condemned him to die, were women. And let's be clear, that took some balls because Jesus was seen as a dissenter and someone who was trying to corrupt the Roman government. So by supporting this man, by showing their tears, they were showing support of someone who was an enemy of the Roman state. And that was dangerous. That could have led to them being arrested and their deaths, and they did it anyway, because women are badasses. Let's be clear. All right. So Jesus is taken off the cross. And he is buried. Now, for religious reasons, the women, the men, no one can do shit about that for 3 days. And so because of Sabbath, because of holy days, there's this delay, right? But the second it is religiously allowed, who goes to the grave to make sure his body is ritually prepared in a way that is right? I'm going to let you guess who it was. It wasn't the men. And so the women showed up, man. Time and time again, the men failed Jesus because men are trash. They are fine with ruling society and keeping classism and keeping the status quo, as long as that means the status quo is their power. But the second it means challenging authority, the second it means showing emotion, the minute that it means showing the fuck up in times of need, they fucking disappear. And that was the case in Jesus's day. It's the case now. And if you're sitting there as a man and you're getting defensive, I want you to take a second and think about why. I know that at times I've been called out for racism, both systemic and overt at times in my life. And my immediate reaction is to be defensive. I have learned that when I'm defensive, it's probably because it's true and I need to take a look at why. And that's really hard for someone who is a liberal feminista who thinks she got shit figured out. Like, I really think I'm woke most of the time. So when someone says I'm a racist or what I'm saying isn't appropriate, I get really fucking offended. It still happens because I'm a part of systemic racism, whether I like it or not. So if you're a dude and you're sitting there and you're like, I'm reporting this shit, she's got hate speech going on, I just want you to take a minute and think about why you feel that way. Jesus was a dude and therefore part of a system that oppressed women. And if I can say that about Jesus, I can certainly say it about you. And that sucks. Like, it sucks to be a part of that system. It sucks to know that as someone who sees themselves as a social justice advocate, that no matter how much I do or how much I work, I will always be a part of a system of oppression. I hate that. I despise it. And if I work really hard in community with other people to change it, maybe one day, long after I'm dead, the women that come after me will not be a part of that system. But that will not happen in my lifetime. And I have to accept that. So guys, just fucking accept it already. All right? You're trash. You're part of a system that's trash. It's not your fault. You can't help it. Jesus couldn't help it. But you can make the start. We have to start somewhere. And the second we can accept that we're a part of this system is the second we can attempt to change it, right? So what does change look like? Well, I'm not 100% sure, but what I do know is that Jesus set some pretty rad examples. Jesus elevated women to a place of equal standing. So that means when he walked into someone's home, he would stay there, whether it was a man's home or a woman's home, which was unheard of in that day. That means when he hung out with Mary and Martha, he allowed them to be in the same room when he was teaching, which sounds a little like, well, that's not very radical. But in Jesus's day, that was a huge fucking deal, y'all. Like, the man defied religious authority and standards and set by women who were bleeding. He allowed himself to be touched by a woman who was menstruating. That was the epitome of shame and degradation and dirt for a man. And he knew that the woman touched him, and then he allowed her to be healed. Y'all, that is fucking radical. That is radical shit. He brought women to a place where they were on the same level as he was, time and time and time again. So if you're a man and you want to know how to not be trash, go into your place of business tomorrow. It's Friday tomorrow. So go into your place of business and ask the women if they have tampons for free in their restroom. You don't have to fucking make radical, crazy, huge changes. Just simple ones that elevate women. Ask if they have tampons in there. And then ask if they're free. Bring women to an equal standard. So We have toilet paper for free in America in restrooms because it is a necessary item. It is necessary for both men and women. Women have a necessary item, not free. Interesting. Because then it wouldn't be fair, right? Because the men don't need it too. Bitch, please. There is a difference between being just and being fair. And this is not about being fair. This is about not being trash. And to not be trash, we have to make a step towards just decisions, not equal pay for equal work, just pay for equal work. That means if women have to fight resistance every step of the way, that should be counted. That should be counted every time as experience-based pay. That means every time a woman walks into a restroom, there should be free sanitary pads and free menstrual items. That means every time a woman walks into a place of business, there is a room set aside for her to lactate before she even gets there, before she even gets fucking pregnant. Because eventually a woman's gonna fucking need that shit. It means that you as a man advocate for just practices when it comes to women every single fucking day. Men should be annoyed with you as much as they are annoyed with women. If they aren't, you're not doing that shit right. I know. Incredible. To not be trash, you have to make a start. And it starts with small steps and small actions. And it means that you become an advocate for women. Walk into your place of employment and ask women what they need to feel entitled as they are, as you are. So, as a white, entitled man, ask a woman what she needs to feel as entitled and as good as you do on a consistent basis. Figure that shit out and then advocate for it without them asking. Don't ask if they want you to. They do. Like, it's just a reality. Walk into a room and look around and ask yourself what the woman working next to you has had to go through to get to that same spot as you have. It's not mind-blowing. Like, this isn't hate speech. This isn't saying that you're horrible. The best thing about being trash is that shit can be recycled. I'm not saying you're useless. I'm saying that you can be turned into something better and new. And it's just as easy as making a decision to changing a useless, empty plastic water bottle into something that can be used again in a place of business. Like, you can be reused. You can be made renew. And you can be part of a culture that is based in solutions. I want to be clear that it won't be easy. Like, on any given day, if you take this course of action, people are not going to like you. Like, that is that is the cost of choosing to not be part of the status quo. When you choose to not be part of the status quo, it means that you are bringing the power structure that Jesus came to defeat down a notch. That people in your same bracket, that is male, employed, and entitled, you're going to be bringing them down. That's what they're going to feel. But really, you're not, right? Like, Jesus didn't come to like bring the power structure down. He came to break it. And there is a difference. Like, I am not asking you to bring other men down. I am asking you to bring women up. And when someone has felt like they have had everything given to them for their whole lives, and then all of a sudden they're made to work for it, it feels like you're being oppressed. When really, like, you're just getting the same shit everybody else is. It's getting hard for me to talk. Mostly because I'm sick. But also because I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated that the very act of speaking truth is so scary to so many people. It can be hard to know that you're not liked by the people who are in power. Because as people, we are groomed to be liked and accepted. And to be liked and accepted by the whole means you have to be liked and accepted by the people in power. So to defy those standards, to defy that culture, means doing something that will mean power doesn't like you. If you are a person in power and you choose to do something different, you will either be hailed as a hero or a pariah. And if you are someone who is not in power and you choose to do that, you will be disliked. And then after you're martyred, you'll be quoted by the same people you were trying to bring down, a la Martin Luther King Jr. So take a moment, ask yourself why you're defensive. If you've actually made it this far into this lesson, then you need to know that Jesus's whole point of being alive was to defeat power. And there were times, even when Jesus was alive, that he was challenged. And this will be my sermon for next week. And see, Jesus was a racist. I know, I've called him trash and a racist all in one sermon. Shit's getting real, y'all. Jesus was a racist and against a woman of all people. And so we're going to talk about that next week, right? Like, Jesus wasn't the savior of the world and perfection on earth because he didn't make mistakes. Motherfucker made mistakes. The difference between Jesus and every other man on the planet was that the second he was called out on it, instead of getting defensive, he listened and he changed. So listen and change. What would Jesus do? That's what Jesus would do. Happy Easter, everyone. Peace.